Good morning, everyone. October the 16th at 10 a.m. Central Time here. We're live and in color, as they used to say, for all you people that used to watch CRT tubes. Anyway, the Steel Guys, we're live here today to talk about the activity in the supply chain of metals from the last week. Kind of promoting our steelguys.steelrep.com community for busy professionals that are in the supply chain of metals that want to network with other busy professionals on a platform that's designed to create content of just discussions amongst ourselves and together with the people that are out there. We are monitoring our chats in the LinkedIn as well as the YouTube channels, and we are ourselves on Zoom. If you happen to have gotten the link to that and logged in that way, we're on all three of those platforms, monitoring all three of those. So I kind of have a little looking back and forth here. Bring in Scott Glenn here to say good morning to Scott Glenn. And
good morning, everyone. Welcome, and glad you could join us. Looking forward to kind of getting a little update on what's been going on in the supply chain of metals.
Absolutely. Well, some of the things we're going to cover today are supply continuity risks in the nickel/ferronickel copper processing markets, some trade realignments and diversion risks of that trade realignments that they're talking about, some manufacturer cost inflation and sourcing complexities that exist with these developments, and some strategic overplay on export restrictions, and finally some merger and acquisition and supply side scaling would not be a quick fix, according to our impacts and strategic angles to consider. So that's kind of some of the things we're going to yak about here today. Getting started with the mining and raw materials and the critical metals.
Oh, excuse me, everybody. I guess I went off the camera, but that doesn't take me off my microphone.
No, I should have bopped over there and just gotten loud and in color there for you. Anyway.
Wow, sorry. That one came out of nowhere.
You can kind of get it off there a little bit. So I don't know, did you have a chance to review the prep notes there and kind of cover some of those?
Yeah, I did. I looked through them, and it's a lot of new stuff that's developing in the world market. We don't necessarily see it directly here in the U.S. market specifically. So it is throughout the world. So there's a lot of factors that come into play, since the market that we live in today is that world market, especially in the metals industry.
Right. I don't know. I guess while we're sitting here as well, we should probably we have announced a new sponsor for the Steel Guys, SteelRep.com, Atlantic Steel. We're building an A312 pipe mill in the world to bring in some pipe to the U.S. market, and we're trying to figure out how to talk to some people about that. So we're out there. Reach out to us if you're interested in a new source for import stainless steel welded pipe.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know, we've been kind of out of that market for a while, but I mean, I think it pop up here in the recent past, but this is a great opportunity, and we're looking forward to promoting this product.
Yes. And trying to figure out how to get it in here to one of the things that's the plant is going to reduce the lead times. It's going to actually be a very, very short lead time for imported product, which will help for import numbers and stuff like that, and then trying to compete in the import market with that. So with shorter lead times, fast deliveries, and terms, it'll be a pretty seamless transaction. So anybody that's interested in that, reach out to us. Jim Glenn at steelrep.com or Scott Glenn at steelrep.com.
Right. We are in the beginning stages of promoting this product, and we're gathering some market information. So if you have any interest in import products like that, yes, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. So back to the last week in the metals supply chain here, I do see here in the mining and raw materials and critical metals, the Anglo-American offers remedy to secure EU approval on nickel deal. So I guess there was a antitrust scrutiny for the sale of its Brazilian nickel assets to MMG. They proposed to repurchasing ferronickel for resale in Europe over a 10-year period to maintain supply continuity. So I guess I didn't know that there was that issue going on before. We hadn't seen that pop up in our news feeds.
No, I hadn't either. That's when I read that, I was a little bit surprised about that as well. And I haven't seen a whole lot of fluctuation in the price of nickel over the past several weeks either. It's been remaining pretty steady. I didn't see what it did today, but
a little oversupply, they say, huh? A little oversupply of material on that in the nickel side.
Yeah.
LME has a little bit in there.
Right. And again, that was in the EU, right? I mean, that agreement that they put through was in the EU. And like I said, in the world market that we're in, I don't know what that effect will be in the United States, but it may trickle down over here. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's that antitrust scrutiny that applies. I mean, that would have been too few people doing too much of the market in the European Union. But again, it was a Brazilian assets. We'll see how that floats. And I guess China expanded its export controls on refined metals. Export restrictions on rare earths, tungsten, lithium, cobalt, and related refined metals have deepened, underscoring China's strategic grip. But analysts warn overuse may backfire by spurring Western investment in alternatives.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how many alternatives there are for lithium and cobalt and that sort of minerals, but perhaps this may spark some people looking into that.
Alternatives,
yeah.
Some of that stuff. So I know one of the things we keep talking about every week, and the news picked up quite a bit on that this week too, was the trade tariffs and regulatory environments that exists with the U.S. in the last couple of years. But the 232s have been in play for many years. However, the increased 232s are relatively new, and changing that market.
Right.
But I keep hearing more and more of the things that we've talked about for a long time is that the purpose of those is a negotiating technique.
Right.
So
we've talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I keep hearing more and more people saying that. But again, the trade deals and the investment in the U.S. markets and moving production here instead of taking it all overseas, that kind of alleviates some of the need for tariffs outside. If you're going to make it here anyway, you don't have to worry about importing the product, the higher tariffs.
Right.
So let's see here. Just going to check the I don't see any notes coming in right now. Looks like we're okay. That's the other thing. I keep, anyway, then bother that. I'll still have to look into that. Why I see some stuff. I have to monitor the YouTube channel, but yet the Restream is supposed to pick it up and put it back into my stream. Actually, there it is right there. Okay, there it did show up. Just took a little while to do it. So if anybody's out there, just be patient and we'll keep looking at it and doing it. What else we got going on? Did any of those tariff regulatory trade items of note hit your brain to?
No, the only thing, and I think it comes up a little bit later in some of the content there is the derivative tariffs. There's some talk about those. I don't know if there's any significant movement in those derivative tariffs, but there's been some, and I think as you stated, the negotiating factor. I don't know if some people are bringing up some items to negotiate or talk about, but the derivative tariffs were something that was brought up.
Trying to find that in the notes here. I don't. I don't see it. I wonder what happened to my notes. Tariffs. Let's see the EU. Oh, there it is. It's the first one. Yeah. EU presses the U.S. to drop derivative tariffs on aluminum content.
And again, that's that negotiating back and forth between the EU and the U.S. and, you know, working out the tariffs. And I know that the EU has put, you know, some limitations on imports, and then anything over and above the levels that they've decided that, you know, they're going to put tariffs on products over and above that, or volumes over and above that, so they can maintain their internal supply.
So some restrictions, but not complete.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad approach either. By the way, to me, I mean, if you're going to be doing tariffs, you know, make sure your manufacturers in your home country are, you know, producing at the levels that they need to produce at, and then let the rest of it be open game, I suppose.
Again, I try not to be hypocritical in anything, so I'm a free trade guy. But, you know, then we
talked about that last week, right? Yeah.
Yeah, still, you know, complete free trade guy, but at the same time, what is free trade? I mean, you have to there's too many variables. It's not just a mill making a ton of steel. You know, the components that go into that, you know, what are the components? If it's all equal, in equal playing field, but, you know, there's so many variables. Again, currencies and labor that, you know, it can control or whatever, you know, if the government controls different factors that go into that, you know, production of that
environmental restrictions and all that kind of stuff. Sure.
Right.
Lots of different stuff. Right.
So it's not just a ton of steel equals a ton of steel.
Cost, right.
Yeah. Rebates on energy or whatever. I mean, again, tax breaks for this, you know, we all play that game, but, you know, again, free trade is only free trade when it's free, you know, and actually every component of the production is open and free, which becomes sometimes difficult out there. Anyway, the EU is pressing, it says Washington to eliminate tariffs on goods containing steel and aluminum, for example, appliances and machinery, as part of the advancing U.S.-EU metals agreement. So I see that's the component, the derivatives. It's, you know, you can't bring you can't bring stainless or carbon flat rolled into the country without the tariff, but you can bring a washing machine, you know, that's made, you know, straight from the flat roll, you know, and the components thereof. I always use the bicycle thing because I thought that then the aluminum, the spokes, you know, we have to account for those spokes,
right?
You know, and not the rubber on the tire. But what percentage of that bicycle price coming into the United States is rubber versus aluminum?
Yep.
Derivative tariffs. Whew. That's an accounting nightmare, as we've talked about before as well.
Exactly. But again, to your point, at what level and all that kind of stuff is negotiating components. You know, let's talk about it. Let's make it fair for both countries. I don't know if other countries are having those conversations or not, but they're certainly not on headline news that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, well, you know, I see it. I mean, you just keep seeing, like, I mean, they've seen, if you go back through it, and I'm not keeping track of the deals, but I mean, like Apple was, you know, spending $500 billion investment over the next 5 years in the United States or something like that. And it went from, you know, $500 billion to $1 trillion, you know, so they another $500 billion or whatever they decided to invest in the U.S. in making a product here rather than overseas and bringing it in. So, you know, it has been working. I know auto plants who, in fact, I saw one Jeep or somebody like that shut down a Canadian production facility this week, and they're going to bring that production to the U.S. You know, there are things that continuing to happen. And I know one of the things that with that peace in the Mideast, one of the things that I think stimulated the peace in the Mideast was not just the idea of peace, but I think some of the economic ties. I think what Trump did was he took the business deals and made business deals with all these countries. So, the theory there is that they want everybody to do good, because when we don't want to, blow up the factory that's, creating something for us, or, the currencies and monies. And so anyway, tying economic benefits to peace. Again, everybody wants peace when they're tied, and when their people have jobs and they want to keep the jobs, and they, are growing and getting better. And so I think a lot of that, but
and one of the things too is that, and this is a little bit off subject, but a lot of these deals, i.e. the Jeep plant coming back into the United States, and some of these world business arrangements to create peace and also prosperity for all countries involved, that's going to take time for that stuff to settle in and happen. But I think it's setting the groundwork for, prosperity in the future for everybody.
That's the key. Yeah. The rising tide raises all boats, as they say.
That's what they say. Yeah.
So along the lines of,
I like that.
Along the lines of your EU, tariff restrictions and production restrictions, I know the Swiss part of that. There's always somebody that gets hurt with that, because apparently the Swiss have a lot of exports. They're not consuming a lot of their steel themselves to other EU markets. So if those restrictions are put on that production, at that level or something like that, they're going to suffer not to the correct proportion as the other, because their exports are such a high percentage of their market.
That's always one of the difficulties in negotiating something. You try and make everybody happy, but for some reason it just never works that everybody wins. But
slapping a blanket thing on there is, that's why, again, negotiating comes into play.
Sure. Yeah.
Gives us room to talk. But before, the Swiss were just pounding everybody with exports and, maybe lowering prices across the EU. Now they can talk about it a little bit, say, okay, let's take a little of this trade for this and a little of this for that, and sprinkle here and a dash of salt.
I think the key phrase there that you just mentioned a couple of times is willing to talk and having conversation. And having the conversations in all aspects of business and economies is a very important thing to do, is have those conversations. And again,
right.
Not everybody's going to agree on everything, but you have to come to the middle ground, if that's at all possible. It seems like
it's negotiate.
That's what's happening these days, is coming to that middle ground.
So I know the last part of this here is the market dynamics and strategic views that comes up. There's 2 points there that they come up with. The European steel stocks rally on productive policy hopes. And the other part was copper supply demand outlook under questioning. That's interesting. What's it say? Analysts argue that large mining mergers may not sufficiently address the looming copper deficit. Even with mergers and acquisition activities, rising demand and constrained growth may output any supply gains. That's a good argument there. I'd like to have to watch that, and as that comes up, I don't know, the mergers and acquisitions, did it talk about that at the top there, the deals?
Well, I know that last week or a week before, there was talking about that the mudslide or whatever that affected that one copper mine that produced approximately 4% of their capacity. 4% of the production in the world. And I don't know if that prompted some mergers or what. I don't know. I'm not familiar with those mergers.
Japan, South Korea, and Spain have jointly voiced concern over collapsing treatment. I don't know what to say. This is something. Refining changes in copper markets. Some smelters are agreeing to review concentrate at or below cost to stay operational. At or below cost.
Yeah, that's not really sustainable for the long term, but
Certainly
know,
not.
yeah.
All right. Well, that kind of our notes on there. Do you have any observations or anything in your world that you've seen out there?
Not really. I mean, it seems to be pretty much a status quo. I mean, pricing. There's no spikes that I've seen in the carbon flat rolled market. As you know, it kind of drops a little bit and stays pretty stable about where it's at right now in the U.S. market anyway. Demand still is pretty soft. I don't think there's no significant rise in demand that I've seen or heard of. Same thing on the nickel side of things when it comes to stainless pricing. Nickel pricing and the surcharge is remaining relatively stable, so there's no real spikes up or down that I've seen, and that's the same for demand on the stainless side of things. But hopefully, with a lot of these things that we've talked about here, that we're going to start to see some increase in the activity. But from what I'm hearing from people and reading, is that it's probably not going to really start to kick into place until Q1 of 26. But let's hope it starts to happen before then.
The banks don't seem. The banks. I read an article yesterday. The banks are implying that the economy is still real good. So, but I guess they got. I always have trouble. That's their point of view, and they're motivated to say that for some reason until it's not, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I still think that the market is stable. I mean, it's not increasing or there's not a whole lot of growth going on. But so is that good? I don't know.
Yeah, the labor market's the only thing that's a little soft. I think the labor market's a little soft. Jobs market, anyway. I say labor. The jobs market, probably the difference there is the labor's the input side and the jobs are the demand side.
Yeah, I know, and there's talk of a couple more drops in the Fed rates between now and the end of the year, possibly up to a half a point between now and the end of the year. Now, what's that going to do to the housing market? And certainly when the housing market starts to pick up and there's growth there, people need to buy stuff to put in that new house that they're buying. So I mean, that's all fits together.
Right. So again, we're kind of wrapping up here, but if anybody's that's on here listening, to anybody have a topic they'd like to throw out there to discuss right now, we'd love to have your input there. We'll wait around. We're kind of ready to wrap up here a little bit. Let's kind of go. Just again, reiterate the steelguys.steelrep.com is our network site for busy professionals in the supply chain of metals, is what we say. That's the ideal profile there. If you're a busy professional in the supply chain of metals and want to network with other professionals, steelguys.steelrep.com. And again, thank you to Atlantic Steel, our new sponsor, 1/2 through 4 inch to begin with on welded stainless imported product, A312.
Schedule 10 and 40. Schedule 10 and 40. Right.
Yeah, 304, 316 to start with anyway. Not too many in the alloys or whatever, but not to start with anyway. And quick deliveries on that. Quick import deliveries is the whole key we can get into answering. We're going to be kind of marketing that here over the next couple of weeks and months. So stay tuned for any information on that.
Right, and I would like to clarify that that material is not available as of yet. That is up and coming. So, it's coming in
building
early
the plant
next
right
year.
now. Yeah.
Right. It's a new facility, and we are interested in talking with people who are in the A312 welded pipe market that can share some information and some assistance with that. So yeah, like Jim said, feel free to reach out to us if you have an interest in that. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, but we'll be going over that soon here now. Kind of wrapping up. Thank you again for joining us, everyone out there. The Steel Guys, we'll do it again next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Now we have it scheduled up and ready to go. There's, if you're on our Steel Guys YouTube channel, subscribe to that and like the videos, but subscribe to that and you'll get notified anytime we put our weekly podcast up like this. LinkedIn, you can see in your notifications if you click on attend or whatever, it'll notify you when we go live. And again, thank you for everybody that's joined us here this week. And with that, I'd like to say have a good couple days. And we're going to be earlier next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock instead of Thursday at 10. So we look forward to seeing you in about 5 days from now.
Everybody have a nice end of the week and a good weekend. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Sounds good, Scott. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.